As the second half of the year goes on, more and more of the projects I review become extraordinary. Not everything is perfect, but there is certainly a lot of good things to take away as opposed to bad. And whilst I may not like everything, I'm certainly enjoying the quality and exploration of films and TV released both this year and during this second half.
About it. I hate everything about you. Why do I love you? I hate.
Classic British comedy with more swearing and two fantastic actors playing the lead roles. Seriously, it was Olivia and Benedict that carried the hell out of this film. Benedict was as conniving and egotistical as he can be, but had a nice level of emotion and actual character underneath. Olivia was perfect, as always. Her dialogue was aggressively witty. She was both cunning and clever, but also vindictive. Honestly, I was watching this movie just for her. It reminded me a lot of Wicked Little Letters quite a bit, which was one of my favorites of last year, and this movie was pretty damn close to that. There was a lot of sadness and a lot more comedy and shock and laughter. The scene at the end was honestly the most beautiful, but also the most shocking. I also appreciated how the movie was structured. We got to see the family relationship develop, we could see the love they have for each other change, and then the hatred seep in based on their own selfishness and desires. But how that comes into conflict with the actual very strong love they do have for each other, and the idea that it took the children leaving for them to start trying to kill each other, is hilariously on the nose, but so funny. And any other cast probably could not have given this movie as much as these two did. Honestly, that's it. It was nothing too complicated, and that worked. Olivia and Benedict created a witty, entertaining, brilliant comedy that held your attention and made you laugh and cry tears of joy at every moment. While still having enough depth to not feel lacking, the supporting cast, I will say, also did a good job with their limited screen time. It's a very British film, and I love it.
Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Pack out the trunk from the front to the back. Yeah.
I have seen the original film that this movie is kind of reworking and is based on, and I must say, whilst this is an interesting attempt at reworking the film to both the modern day and also to America, there are a few things that didn't translate quite as well. The corporate stuff and the music is a decent replacement for the shoe company, but it lacks as much depth as the original movie had. It feels like a much weaker attempt. Of course, Jeffrey Wright and Denzel Washington are great on screen together, although A$AP Rocky is less than ideal in this film. There are good and bad musician performances in film, and this is definitely a weak one. The whole story of the kidnapping just felt rushed, and also a weak storyline in comparison to the other plot points, like the A$AP Rocky storyline with his motivation. Could have worked alongside Denzel's work with trying to keep and protect black artists in the music industry and supporting them. But Spike Lee's attempt to connect this film to one of Akira's masterpieces just ruined all that, because it never felt like any of those stories are given enough time until the very end, where everything is just kind of dumped on us near the end. What I will give the film credit for is great cinematography and uses of lighting, because it's hard to deny that there are some really pretty and shiny shots in there, and some really cool sets and uses of the camera and the music. Being a movie supposed to represent black music, the song choices were not half bad. It's such a disappointment given the film both looks fantastic, has great actors, and is inspired by one of the old classic movies, but just failed to meet up to those expectations, as well as not being a particularly strong film. It's here, it's finally here. And of course it's filled with scandal, emotion, and witty dialogue. Mary, oh poor Mary, one funnel blow to a station only for her to rise above like the queen she is. Seeing her and Edith be great siblings after all the shit that went down in the show. And it was lovely to see the family unit so well knit even after everything that goes down. Even as the number of staff went down, seeing everyone again was lovely. And Giving Patmore and Carson a retirement and a proper end felt right. Isabella stepped into Maggie's role perfectly with the shade, the fire, and her usual spirit. It was so good to see. You could feel Maggie and her character's presence over the whole thing, especially with the loving tribute at the end, and honestly, the whole final 20 to 30 minutes was a massive tearjerker, seeing Robert finally accept Mary as his heir, stepping back, having the family all back together, including Thomas and Sibby. Barrow finally getting a sweet moment of acceptance. Noel Coward was a delightful character. I would honestly just watch a movie about him with this actor. He was so much fun. The final scene with Mary reminiscing about Matthew and Sybil and all of our favourite characters was probably the moment you will cry, because that's when you realise it truly was the end. And the score kicks in and we see Robert and Cora walking away from the house. It's beautiful. The show and family and all these characters have worked their way into my heart, and to see it end is heartbreaking. And this movie may have had a lot of talking, a lot of posh and circumstance, but that's what the show did so well, and it's what I loved, and the characters make it so amazing to watch. It was an honestly perfect, scandalous yet beautiful conclusion to Downton Abbey, filled with all the charm of the show, but really showcasing the full journey of all these characters, leaving the conclusion to feel earned and celebrated. Also, the end credits with all the various clips of the characters was so sweet, as was Mr. Mason's speech. Honestly, I could keep talking about it, but it was just a perfect end to a brilliant show. Wow, Stephen King adaptations have been on fire this year. And this one is absolutely up there with The Life of Chuck. This film is dark, it's dystopian. The way this is shot is both simplistic looking, I mean they are just walking, but the effort that went into making it is impressive for such a simple looking movie. This film makes walking terrifying and friendship feel both heartwarming and doomed, which leaves the ending feeling so cathartic but still kind of hopeless. The team of young actors are a group of people with bright futures ahead of them. They did such a good job of portraying companionship, fear, despair, and pain all at once, and at such high levels, it really helps sell the nightmare situation so well. The way walking feels both terrifying but also so important is a benefit to the film. There are times where you can so easily feel the pain of the walk, we feel bogged down, we can smell it, we can feel it, but also we have the added fear of knowing what will happen if they stop. The conversations are also fluctuating between being philosophical, being friendship makers, and being nasty. Typical adolescent conversations. There are so many details that have gone into this film to really sell you on the world, on the situation, and the dystopia of it all. The random spectators, including the children, the destruction, the abandonment, Mark Hamill's overperformative major, Judy Greer's emotional performance. There is so much effort put into every inch of this film so that we can really feel the impact of every death, of every mile, and every conversation. It's a dark, brilliantly filmed, brilliantly performed film that makes you feel every mile and every pain. You are so attuned with every moment. It's intense, it's emotional, it's disgusting, and it's heartbreaking, and I love it.
White shirt, now red, my bloody nose sleeping. You're on your tippy toes creeping around.
The original movie was amazing, and somehow they made it even better. This new style of animation works so well for creating dynamic and snappy comedic animation that amplifies the already comedic action. The opening sequence was a masterpiece. It was quick, it was entertaining, it was fun and adrenaline fueled. The Bird Girls were a great addition and another point in the definitely not furry bait category, especially Kitty. The development of the relationship between Diane and Wolf was more definitely not furry bait, but they were cute and they definitely had the chemistry, as did the bad guys as a whole, continuing to be a great and entertaining group of characters. They really are the thing that makes these movies, especially with how good the voice actors are. The relationship with the Chief, the continuous comedy with the various references to a lot of other movies. MacGuffinite was a hilarious Jap. Marmalade, voiced once again by the ever-dry Richard Ayoade, was an equally funny side villain that finally revealed more of the lore from the books, and with that ending section that further hints at them going more in the directions of the books and using more of that wild and insane lore. The third act segment on the rocket and the space station was equal parts ridiculous comedic fun and intense action. DreamWorks have kind of been fluctuating between disappointing and amazing, but when they put in the time and the energy, they absolutely nail it. The Bad Guys has been one of the best animated films of the last decade, and the franchise that is being built around it is going to be entertaining and adrenaline-filled whilst containing a lot of really nice emotional moments. I am super excited to see where the rest of the franchise goes, and I really hope it does continue because it's one of DreamWorks' best, and I'm so eager for more.
How to get to Hades Town? You have to take a long way down through the underground under cover of night. Laying low, staying out of sight. Ain't no compass, brother. Ain't no map. Just a telephone wire and a railroad track. Keep on walking and don't look back till you get to the bottom line.
If I had a nickel for every movie in September with a great cinematography but lackluster story, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice in 1 month. This film is gorgeous, like La La Land levels of gorgeous with its colors and its lighting. I was in awe at some of these shots. The colors were so pretty, the lighting was used so effectively. The section where they're supposed to be on stage utilized the lighting probably the best of all. However, it was the story for me that was probably the biggest drag of the film. It did feel like La La Land meets a massive trauma dump therapy session, and the way that the trauma dump was done did not feel very effective in some places. Like, it worked to a point, but it also sometimes felt forced. Like, most of the thing felt forced. Colin and Margot are great, but their chemistry was so shoehorned in it was hard to believe, especially after everything that the two of them revealed. The idea of a car rental company acting as a soul-searching journey is an interesting concept, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge was always a delight to see. The reveal of who was actually supposed to be the owner of the car was an interesting story point I wish had been maybe explored a little more, honestly. Phoebe was the best part of the movie, and I wanted more of her. I couldn't find any way to like Margot's character, but also, Colin's character felt a little weak. However, the man should do more musicals, because it's that one little segment was pretty cool. This was another unfortunate disappointment. A movie that looks this good and has a concept that conceptually should work without being executed to its full potential is a letdown, especially for an original film. There were a few features of the movie I loved, mainly the visuals. Like, seriously, how does a film with this kind of plot look so damn good? But it is really dragged down by the plot not hitting quite as hard as it needs to. I kind of lost interest by the end.
I've been around the world a couple of times or maybe more. I've seen the sights, I've had the lights on every foreign shore. But when my mates all ask me the place that I adore, I tell them right away. What do we tell them? Give me a home among the gum trees with lots of plum trees.
Make it 3 nickels. Like, seriously, this film looks amazing. Better than an outback Australian town should look. Like, even the shed kind of looked appealing in some ways. This is one major feature I like. There's one major feature I liked. And I won't deny the story inspired by an absolute Aussie legend was heartwarming to see, and the kangaroos are adorable, and the community was filled with heart and some Aussie spirit. However, there was a lot of issues. Mainly that it felt like it was a movie written for Americans trying to explain what Australia is like, and they had a lot of opportunities to explore Indigenous and Aboriginal Australian connections to kangaroos with Charlie, and even venture into the Dreamtime stories, but of course that's not generic enough. The community was nice, but didn't feel Australian. Like, it felt like someone had roughly explained how Australians talk to someone, and they had written a version of that. It's also very clearly written for a younger audience, so it's, or like, for both a younger audience and also for, like, families. So that's kind of why it's a little bit awkward, I guess. And clearly, the person who wrote this knows nothing about kangaroos, because first of all, they have been a protected species in this country since 1992, so you absolutely are not allowed to hunt them. There are laws around, like, going out and sort of hunting them a bit, but that is to control population. That is sanctioned. That is not just go out and shoot a kangaroo. Also, doesn't matter how injured a male red kangaroo is, they are dangerous. Chris should have had his pelvis shattered by those kicks. They are incredibly dangerous. I understand that they're trying to adapt a story about this man, but they are not doing enough to really give an accurate portrayal of Australia and Australian wildlife. It felt like a pimped up, airbrushed film designed to sell the ideal of the Australian outback life and wildlife to a foreign audience, and it is rough. Much like Big Bold Beautiful Journey, there is something there, but it's really hard to look past the negative parts to this film, and to be fair, or at least honest, I had little expectations for this film to begin with, so I guess it at least met those expectations. Paul Thomas Anderson is cementing himself more and more as one of the best filmmakers of the age. This film is no exception. It is the perfect movie to release at this time, where there is so much of this stuff going on in the US. It is not too far of a stretch either. The opening scene, even for a few minutes, was representative of everything that has happened so far this year. This movie is so elegant, so intricate, especially in the way he manages to combine multiple genres together, from the dark and depressing political thriller/drama, with the revolution and their various actions across the opening act of the film, to them, the family-oriented, emotional drama with Leo and Chase that has both intense action, surprisingly good and well-fitting comedy, and a happy ending. The intricate way these stories are intertwined and bounce off each other, is part of what makes Paul Thomas Anderson so good. Look at Magnolia. The opening act with the revolution sets up the rest of the actions of various characters and creates both an underlying threat and tension, but also this hidden Easter egg you're always looking out for. Though Leo is supposed to be the star, the show is stolen by Benicio and Sean. This was an Oscar performance from Sean. He does so much good physical acting with his face and his walk and how he holds himself, and does a really good job differentiating between creep, soldier, and white supremacist, which is my favorite part because of how damn goofy it all is. It's where a lot of the comedy comes from, despite being a very, very dark story point. Benicio's Miyagi-like demeanor and casual aloofness is very effective at counteracting Leo's chaotic paranoia and aggressive performance. His whole segment was fantastic. The equal parts intense and chaotic, but also somewhat uplifting, it reignited the hope of this film. The cinematography is immaculate, and there are some great long takes. Paul Thomas Anderson manages to get really intimate with the camera, especially when vehicles are involved. The scene with them fleeing the robbery and that extended sequence between the three cars, I think, are the best examples. I have never seen a camera used in that way, nor have I seen a road shot this way. It's a really clever way of heightening the tension and adding further confusion. He's just so damn good, I don't know what to say. This is one of Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpieces. It's a visual masterpiece that combines some usually conflicting genres together elegantly to create an annoyingly realistic and fantastic movie. Easily deserves its title as one of the best films of the year.
They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family.
The second half of the season offered less mystery and more action. The Knight family reunion and their goals provided even more Adam's Law, both to Morticia and Gomez, but an answer to Thing? Honestly, the most crazy part of the show. The storyline was very entertaining, with Wednesday and the return of the gorgeous Gwendolyn Christie. She was great in the limited screen time she had, both in the first season and in this one. Revealing the mystery of Dort and the Siren Cult was a pretty darn interesting twist, and both concluded some stuff from the first season, but also tied a nice bow around everything. The Freaky Friday episode was very impressive. Seeing Emma and Jenna playing each other was very cool. They both did a great job and created such wonderful chaos. Catherine Zeta-Jones is a fantastic Morticia. Her energy and scene work with everyone is so fun to watch. The VFX across the show has been very impressive, and it feels like this season was darker and much more gory than the last one, which I think I liked, as it felt much more Addams with the chaos, the family, and the gore, and of course a nice moment with the three friends at the end. The dance was better than season 1. It was very well choreographed. Also, Lady Gaga was really not in the show this much for how much she was praised. There was a lot done in such a short amount of time, but they have set up so much for season 3 that makes me super excited, though I hope this one takes much less time to make. I loved this new season, and I love this show and all its eccentricities, and I'm super excited to where the show goes and future Addams Family projects go.
From the dusty mesa, her looming shadow.
Task surprised me with how deep it was. Coming from the brains behind Mayor of Easttown, what surprised me most was how they were able to jump past a lot of character exposition and still make us feel connected with these characters, which was helped by some great acting across the board. The crime might have been smaller scale, but they did a good job of amping up the threat for this show through the shifting perspectives of various characters and how they brought them together across the chase. Mark carries it hard. Him and his family drama is a fantastic bit of character writing that never feels like it distracts from the story. It works to make us understand why he connects with certain characters and the main plot so much more. Fabian was also great. Thuso and the other women were not really in it that much, but they were pretty good when on screen. Lizzie had great chemistry with Fabian. It's grounded, it's emotional, it's raw, it's realistic, and it's both a strong crime drama with a thrilling and satisfying conclusion, but also has an epilogue where Mark delivers a fantastic monologue that resolves a fascinating emotional mystery established through his whole family's side plot, which I would honestly watch a show about on its own because it was so brutal and so heartbreaking. But everyone in that family delivered everything so well. It's a fantastic little miniseries that deserves the praise it gets because it is doing a lot of really good and interesting things. I'm glad I picked this up.
Cold-blooded, with the deep killer instinct. Don't look us right in the face. It's like staring at a burning sun. Got teeth like razor blades, and you know that we're out for blood. We're out for blood.
Oh, Netflix, I am mad now. I thought that since this was the final season, it was at least try and wrap up the clearly very immense story being played out, but nope. It's left on a pretty dark and epic cliffhanger of Drew finally accepting his identity as the Wolf King and coming into his power. It feels like we are 2 arcs into a 3-act story, and the third act could have been the best if Netflix hadn't pulled the plug. The world building is really cool though. With all the various warlords and their designs, the animation felt much more refined and smoother. And there was a lot more action. The relationship between the 4 friends had a bit more time to build out, and each of them felt much stronger as individuals. Hector especially. His relationship with his brother and the development of his strength was the most entertaining to watch. The final battle was a pretty chaotic spectacle. I generally thought they were going to pull out a win, but I guess that would have happened next season because it was pretty brutal at times, and whilst it was still aimed at kids, there was some dark stuff like the undead guards, the Whitley/Gretchen dynamic, and the love triangle was pretty well done. It didn't feel like it was bogging down the story, and it was much more maturely handled than I was expecting from a show like this. Whitley is my choice, honestly. They have had more time together, their chemistry's better, but Gretchen made sense as a counter to Drew's adventurous hands-on approach compared to her sort of regality and natural sort of leadership. But the writers did what they did, and it worked. God, I love this show so much. I'm so invested and so encapsulated by this world and these characters. I was so invested in how they would wrap up this incredible story. But, of course, Netflix pulled the rug out from underneath us, and now I'm super annoyed that the show doesn't have and will never get a proper satisfying conclusion. Aside from that little nugget, God, the show was good. I'm glad I watched it.
Here we go!
Oh boy, the boys' universe is heating up as we knew what is probably going to be the most intense final season in years. This next and probably final season of Gen V really turned up the pressure, showcasing both the new divide created by Homelander's control over the government and the general dissent created. Our gang of heroes have a lot of great moments together, particularly Emma. She's a fantastic character who has a lot of growth this season, alongside Polarity as well. Marie, Jordan, and Kate have their moments of both being strong characters, but also some weaker moments. Hamish Linklater as Cypher was a fantastic villain. He was so terrifying. This show did a peacemaker and created a plot twist that, whilst it was obvious from a certain point, it was a great twist. And Ethan Slater was wildly good as Godolkin. His crazed super supremacist, but not in the way we thought. One thing that I also appreciated about this show was how we still felt Andre's presence. They did a great job of managing to include him and his legacy on the characters in the show without actually having him there, and there was definitely a lot of setup in this season for the final season of The Boys, like Odessa, Marie's level up. Heck, I even thought Godolkin was going to be involved in that. Sister Sage making moves and sort of failing. There was a lot of that. There was a bit of a lackluster feeling to the plot and the ending given this fact, but there was still a lot of development for our characters that puts them in a great position come next year and the fiery final season for The Boys. And Gen V has been a surprisingly better and more deep part of the expanding Boys universe. It's managed to be gory and violent, but also really deep, something I think The Boys sometimes doesn't balance well. And it is sad to see the characters go, but there's still a lot happening with them in the coming Season 5, so I look forward to seeing how this all gets resolved. I sincerely hope no one dies. None of them die, at least. It was a fantastically brutal, emotional, and intense season of superhero television.
Spooky
was just a slightly more adult-orientated animated cartoon designed for entertainment instead of having anything too complex. The family's where the biggest depth comes from with their classic dysfunctional family dynamic. Esther and the mom were the only two good characters though. Ben was weird and annoying and the ghost brother added very little. I will say though that Abaddon is adorable. I would die for him. He's another of the good characters in the show. There was at least a variety of ghosts though for a show about them. They took more of a backseat than I would have liked. The horror elements and various references were fun. There were definitely a few fun episodes, the Abaddon one in particular, but the rest was just a monotonous, occasionally funny drawl, which whilst not necessarily bad, in fact is once again a welcome break from the intense dramas, but I did feel there was a lot more potential for something that was trying to be slightly toned down and horror-themed version of Rick and Morty. I would like to see more. Maybe if they hone in on some of the obvious family drama, like with their dad and the issues between the mum and the ghost brother, which did have a moment in the series, but it felt like it was too shoehorned in and very quickly dismissed. There is not a real narrative to the show. I think if they want to continue, they need to come up with some better narrative, and definitely start at least trying to work on the hotel. It was a perfectly passable show, like I found some enjoyment in parts of it, but it's also felt very weak. It was a fine little detour, won't be mad if it continues, but other than that, eh. I really liked the first season of this show. Not only was it Lego based, so of course, but they did such a fun job creating this alternate world that with tons and tons of references, super cool Lego design, stellar animation, and great comedy. The second season continued that with the arguably even crazier season. Solitus is a great villain, and Dan Stevens is amazing once again. The rest of the cast, including the newly expanded characters that include, so many references and returning voice actors. The animation of the Lego world is amazing. It's so fluid and lively and works really well for both the crazy action and the comedy. The references continue to land so very hard, from the Paw Guild to the giant size K2SO and Chewbacca to Dathomir being light and having post-Night Sisters Ventress, evil Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Revan. Pirate Queen Amidala was so cool, and getting to see them all reunited and working together was kind of adorable. Honestly, nothing else needs to be said. This is a fantastic little short series with a lot of heart, tons of references, great animation, and is better Star Wars than What If. Better Star Wars What If than What If was for Marvel. It's some amazing Star Wars content and an anomaly, definitely, especially considering the other Star Wars content we have gotten this year. But so far, Star Wars content has been banging this year, and I really hope they do more of this Lego Star Wars stuff because it's a really nice little detour. And if they continue with ideas for this what if kind of scenario, I'd love for it to continue more. This show ended up being way better than I was expecting, despite the ending leaving a cliffhanger that would be resolved with the season 2. It was pretty well paced with a 4-part series. The animation does look like What If, but they did a lot more with it, especially getting the most out of that TVMA rating, which I appreciate Marvel doing, and they did a lot of gnarly stuff. The faux one-take segments were so cool, the variety of characters and the various references and the world building is very cool. Blade Knight was sick as hell. His fight scenes were awesome, slightly unceremonious death. Infinity Hulk, Queen of the Dead Wanda, Zombie Thor, actual Baron Zemo, and the Raft coming back, Zombie Namor. There was a lot of really cool stuff in this series. The Captain Marvel vs. Icarus fight would have been nice to see more of. There was a lot of creativity across the board, and it was interesting to see certain characters team up. The ending does suck, even if the show doesn't get to continue after this point. I think it should, because the ending they have is a great setup for another really dark story. I appreciated the show not being afraid to kill characters. It felt like an improvement over Echo in that it was really not afraid to be TVMA. There was some cool animation. It was much better than I was expecting, though it still may suffer from future decisions.
Surrounded by losers, misfits and boozers, hanging by your fingernails.
This series has been quite the enigma and quite the enjoyable departure from usual spy action thrillers. It takes a much more balanced between comedy and drama approach. that even at its weakest as it is in this season, it's still entertaining. Gary Oldman is having the time of his life as Jackson Lamb, and is easily the best character because of how enjoyable it is to watch him be an arse, and also the smartest character in any scene. Watching the park be incompetent and the slow horses be incompetent but actually get the job done is hilarious, and the new first desk proving to be a tart was quite hilarious as well. The plotlines are never always the most intriguing stories, and they do produce a lot of comedy though. The season was rife with some really funny moments. Jonathan Pryce makes the most of his limited appearances, being one of the biggest emotional cores of the show. The season chose an interesting time to release as well because the plotline, at least in certain elements, seemed very relevant to the real world as it is now. I find that a lot of the effort that goes into shooting both a simplistic yet action-packed show that has a lot of intricacies despite being so low-key as compared to other spy thrillers is... The show really is unique in how it focuses on a lot more of the domestic small-scale plotlines and hones in on the actions of certain characters and the various traumas across the seasons, as well as the comedy as well. Even the stories that go international still manage to remain small-scale despite that. There was a lot of other moments I enjoyed, from the hilarity of Gimble's death, to River and Co. being a surprisingly good duo, to Roddy continuing to be both arsehole and surprisingly a good character. Everything about Lamb, Taverner being a stone-cold stunner as usual. Like, she's not a nice character, but you can't help but like her. It's all round a very enjoyable series that is very different from a lot of stuff out there, and I'm happy to pick it up again both with its final few seasons and just to rewatch. A mix of both fantastic and not quite there but still great projects for an overall enjoyable month of media that continues the upwards trend of the second half of the year. I doubt that the year is going to end on quite a massive high, but I'm having a great time at the moment, and I look forward to the next few months of hopefully great films and television.